All right, welcome to episode number 18 of the Dan Time Podcast. I'm your host, Dan McArdle. How are you doing before I get started? You're doing fine. I'm going to go ahead and answer that. You are doing just fine. That's the answer that we have to give. No one seems to want the long-form response anymore. Nobody's got the bandwidth for it, so you're doing okay. Even if you're having a rough morning, if New Year's Eve can't get here soon enough so you just get to a clean new year where you haven't procrastinated or let somebody down or screwed something up, listen, I do hope that whatever you're going through, big or small, that you get some enjoyment out of this show. Okay. Real quick, on the socials, if you're into that, if you're on X or Instagram, I'm at Dan Time Pod, and Facebook and YouTube is Dan Time Podcast. Be sure to follow those pages. I don't load them down. You're not going to see 17 posts a day, but you'll see something most days that might be mildly interesting. So if you have a question, a concern, a complaint, you can reach me at dantimepod@gmail.com. And, of course, if you'd like to come on the show, please reach out to me anytime. I hope you enjoyed Danny Pike's story last week. If you missed it, please dial it back after this episode. You're going to love hearing from this rising talent in the Chicago musical theater scene. Today, I am ecstatic, truly, to introduce to you award-winning Boston blues musician Danielle Miraglia. Danielle won the 2021 New England Music Award for Blues Act of the Year and the 2019 award for Female Performer of the Year. Lauren Daly of the Boston Globe wrote, "Straddling the line where folk roots meets rock blues, Miraglia has a voice that can go from a raspy come-hither purr to an Etta James-esque powerhouse belt, although she may be best known for her lead thumb, a heavy, thumping strike on her Gibson that's backdrop percussion in itself." As a lyricist, Danielle will satirize societal issues, and she's not afraid to call out personas, people that all of us know too well. And she writes other songs that celebrate love and longing. It's just some really great stuff. Her most recent solo record, Bright Shining Stars, released by VizTone, debuted at number 15 on Billboard's top US Blues albums. It features 11 tracks, including covers of Janis Joplin's Turtle Blues, Keb Mo's You Can Love Yourself, and 2 Bob Dylan cuts, Meet Me in the Morning, and You're Gonna Make Me Lonesome When You Go. We dive into the music on Bright Shining Stars, as well as cuts from her previous solo records, Glory Junkies, Box of Troubles, and her 2005 debut, Nothing Romantic. Danielle also reveals later in the episode her favorite song that she's ever written. Now, she also fronts the full band Danielle M and the Glory Junkies. The music blends influences of some of Miraglia's own musical heroes, the Rolling Stones, Prince, Joplin. She's joined by bandmates Lawrence Scudder, Eric White, Jim Larkin, and Chris Anzalone. Nate Dow of AsHeardHere.com writes, "Danielle Miraglia is like a musical butterfly who's been granted unlimited creative metamorphosis." You're going to love this conversation and getting to know Danielle Miraglia. I sure did. You're going to love this conversation and getting to know Danielle. Be sure to visit DanielleM.com for all updates and links to her various social media pages. Find her albums and songs wherever you download music. Get a playlist going. I could say more, but you know me. I got to cut it off somewhere. So let's get to it. I know you're ready. Folks, it is Danielle Miraglia time. All right. Well, it is a really, I say this a lot, special treat. I'm trying to move the word treat out of the way, but it's a real pleasure to be talking to the one, the only Danielle Miraglia today. Danielle, first of all, thanks for making time to do this.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been busy out there performing with your band, the Glory Junkies, and doing solo performances. I'm sure you're always writing. What's the latest? What if someone were to ask, what are you doing right now? What are you working on?
Well, now I'm trying to write for for another recording, but I have, I have like a handful of songs, and what happens is you start writing and you intend to write a certain way because you might want it to, it's just you can't predict how you're going to write and what style you're going to like, it just happens. So what's happening now is I have a handful of songs that I don't necessarily think all fit on the same album.
Right.
So so I'm contemplating whether to just do some singles, or that's what these days a lot of people are releasing singles rather than full records, because that's how people are taking things in. So, but I still like the idea of having a cohesive piece of art that all goes together as well. So that's what I'm sort of struggling with right now, and while also just getting busier with gigs again after it feels like it feels like we lost like a big chunk of time, which we did in a way. So now it's just kind of putting the pieces back together and figuring out where to go from there as far as
Yeah.
all this goes.
When you released your last studio record, Bright Shining Stars, this was kind of in the middle of COVID, where October 2020,
Yeah.
and I guess you've been working on it pre-COVID and then during that time period. What was that like to just put an album out in those uncertain times, and you're maybe not going to just rush out and perform live? How was
Well,
that experience?
it was both. It was kind of there were pros and cons to it because I was lucky enough that I had finished all the recording. It actually was already mixed and mastered by the time everything started shutting down. So I was lucky enough that it was pretty much ready to go. So I didn't have to, put it on hold for a couple of years or anything like that. But it was like, so I put it out with VizTone label, and it was the first time I put something out where the right stuff happened with it, as far as like just getting it out to all the people who would care, or who would do something with it. So they got it to chart on Billboard the first week on the blues charts, and they got it to all the different blues radio stations, all around internationally and nationally. They got it, got a lot of reviews and all that stuff. So it was like all the stuff that I've always wanted to happen with a recording, but then I couldn't tour with it. So, I never got to really give it the attention I would have liked to. So that part of it kind of sucked, that I couldn't do anything with it except be like, wow, that's cool. Oh, cool. I got another review on that. Oh, it was like a little nice, you know, thing like that. So, but the good thing was that in a time when it felt like everything was stagnant and like, could have just kind of, just gotten under the blankets and,
Mm-hmm.
decided to just shut down for for a year or two.
Would have been really easy to
That
do.
Yes, but it was like that kind of gave me a little bit of a nice little ray of hope within that time, that it was like, well, this is cool. At least there's like, I feel like it looks like I'm busy right now, even though I'm not. There's things happening while I'm just pretty much most of my time is being spent, at home cooking and watching movies and figuring out what's next. But yeah, so that was a good thing that it came out at that time. But at the same time, I feel like it's never gotten, a proper tour around it or anything like that. So right now I'm like, all right, do I just pretend that it just came out and use and when I travel and play gigs now, do I just treat it like this is almost like it's a new release, or do I just move on to the next thing? So that's the conflict at the moment.
I think, without sounding trite, that it's a great album, and
Thank you.
for the release date being a few years ago, like you said, a lot of people haven't heard these songs yet. You haven't been able to reach. Well, you can never reach everybody, um, but you're paying homage to some legends here, and some people that have been very important and influential to you: Bob Dylan, Melvin London, Robert Johnson. I mean, these are songs that people still would be craving this type of music or these songs live. I guess while you're writing, you can maybe not feel rushed to just put out.
Yeah.
How I was going to ask about like what you were saying at the top of having a batch of songs and you're not sure if they all fit in one bucket for the same album. Things are kind of moving in the direction, I'll agree, with releasing singles versus the full-length albums.
Hmm.
So are you starting to think, well, maybe I'll just focus on maybe the 3 or 4 best ones here and put out some singles and then maybe turn around and pop out an EP?
Yeah, that might be the route that it goes. I guess it's like I usually when I put out releases, it usually has sort of a mix of everything that I've been doing over whatever the course of time is between albums. And it's a little bit of I have like a little bit of a inner conflict of like so I'm this tone is a blues label, so that's like who I've been working with them. I worked with them on this last album. I'd love to put something out with them next. Everything I'm writing is like not really blues right now.
Yeah.
Which it's like what the I don't know what it is. It's something psychological in me that like my creativity rebels against whatever is going to be best for me in the moment. Whatever's going to actually work for me at the time is like the creatively I always just start naturally going in a different direction, which is probably my biggest setback. But yeah, so a lot of what I'm writing right now is like it probably falls more into like a folk category, which I sort of straddle both the blues and the folk anyway, but and then like I wrote a rock song and so it's like everything's all over the place, which is fine. I prefer to have some variety, but at the same time I'm like, all right, so what do I do with this? So that's the challenge of that. But
Yeah,
in the meantime, most of the shows that I do are either blues or folk based. And so it's like I have my band Glory Junkies. That's like kind of almost like rootsy rock blues, kind of a mix of things. I play with Peter Parchek, who is an incredible blues rock guitar player, just virtuoso, and we do a project together which leans blues or blues rock, and so we kind of those songs work with that project, and then I do my solo thing, which is kind of a folk blues thing with some singer-songwritery stuff in there.
Yeah, I had in my notes that I feel like you've always given yourself the freedom to sort of go back and forth between folk and roots and blues, maybe some rock in the mix, and to not just stay in that one department.
Yeah, I mean it's all been an influence, all of it over time. It's like I've honestly always been, since for as early as I can remember, from my earliest memories, I've been a fan of various popular music in different genres, and so it's all in there. It's all part of the influence. Anything from, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 80s, and it was like the R&B groups of the time. It was New Edition and Lisa and Cult Jam, and obviously Prince has been, he's a whole other genre in himself, but I've been Prince is my favorite of all time, and then it's like getting into, then I had my, when I started playing guitar, it was like mostly like glam metal of the time.
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff, and then getting, and then like what influenced that? Well, classic rock is what led to that. All right, so then it was like classic rock, and that was like, to me, that's kind of the golden period of popular music. The Stones are my favorite. My other favorite band of all time, Janis Joplin, Hendrix, all that stuff. And then it's like, all right, what influenced that? The blues. That's when you get to the blues. And it's like, okay, this is the real stuff right here. So you dig deeper and deeper, and you keep finding what influenced what. It all leads to the blues.
Oh, yeah. I can see where some of your primary influences have helped mold your style. And I encourage my listeners, obviously, to download Danielle's music, Bright Shining Stars. These are just some of the solo records. Glory Junkies from 2015, Box of Troubles, and Nothing Romantic, the debut. But also go to her website or go on YouTube, because you're not really going to get the full picture until you see Danielle live. And what I was getting at here is I really enjoy the percussion that you build into your one-player sound, like the foot stomping and the way you strum the Gibson, and just that. I'm not describing it well enough, but where you hit the strings and you're just going for that downbeat,
Yeah.
Are you?
Thank
I
you.
couldn't tell exactly, but are you going no pick, or do you do a hybrid? Use a thumb pick?
I mostly play with no pick. There's like one or two songs that I use a thumb pick for, but it's pretty much that sound is pretty much just fingers on strings, fingers to strings directly. And people do it all different ways. You listen to Mississippi John Hurt or Big Bill Broonzy or some of the later guys, Leo Kottke or, these, everybody kind of has, if you watch them play, everybody has a different technique and they all have a different feel. Chris Smither is a, more contemporary guy, or Kev Mo, like those guys, they all have a different approach, and honestly, it's not even just about approach so much as like what's in the soul and how it's coming out, so
Right.
I teach guitar as well, and I always just say, like, when people are like, oh, I want to learn how to play, I want to learn how to pick like that, I'm like, well, really, it's like you start with technique, but then it's like, then you just find your own feel. I learned it by I honestly, I learned it by not totally learning it, if that makes any sense. So, I heard somebody playing that style. My friend Michael Troy, who's since passed away, and he was an amazing songwriter and just a beautiful human being. And I remember him telling me, you got to listen to Mississippi John Hurt to get that style. He was more of a folk player and did it like sort of in the style of like Dave Van Ronk or that, like that. So it's who was also influenced by Reverend Gary Davis and Mississippi John Hurt and the blues players. So that there was that sort of, God, I'm not like a folklorist where I don't have like all the all the details in the years, but there was there's will inevitably be some expert folk scare of the 60s nerd out there who's going to say you have it wrong or whatever, but there was this blend of, there was this huge influence that blues had on folk back in the 60s when all those guys were playing in the clubs in New York City and all that. So anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. The point is, my good friend Michael Troy had said, because I said, how do you do that? How do you play like that? He said, just listen to Mississippi John Hurt and learn that stuff. And so I did that. I also took lessons from Jeff Bartley, who is a beautiful picker, just absolutely great songwriter, picker. He's someone to check out as well. And so I took some direct lessons with him, and then I also learned out of this transcription book that Stephen Grossman put out of all the a bunch of Mississippi John Hurt tunes. So I would go to that book and I would learn the stuff. And I honestly I'm not a disciplined learner. So the truth is, I would learn it, but then I'd be like, oh, I'd go off on like a tangent, like I'm probably doing in the conversation right now. And I'd go, oh, and then I'd start writing a song with like something I pulled from one of those songs, and it, and then it would turn into something else. And then I just started like finding my own way to do, like just picking it a different way. So I got I love funk and R&B and that kind of stuff too. Not that I think the way I play is like anything like funk, but it's like I like a backbeat. Like I like that. Like, so when I was using the thumb to kind of go back and forth on the E string and the D string, I would like really dig into that D string, boom, and that started becoming my style. Like just like it's like a
Right.
almost like a slap bass or something. It's like, and so that became my thing. So I'm like an aggressive player. I'm not necessarily a finesse player. Like someone like Chris Smither is just, it's so smooth. You listen to him and it's like, oh, it's like liquid.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And Mississippi John Hurt has a little bit of both going on in his playing. But anyway, and also just like the technique, whether you use all three of your fingers or just one or two, I use all three, and then the thumb. But anyway, that's really getting into the weeds of it. But
yeah, what I was wanting to say, if people listen to the latest record or listen to the Glory Junkies full band album, make sure you pair it with the videos, because Danielle, you really have a unique style. It doesn't look like you're trying to be like somebody else. I mean, it really looks like you've carved out something that's all your own, with, like you said, your influences in mind. But it's not just one. You're not trying to be just like Lucinda Williams or Janis Joplin. What usually comes first when you're writing? Is it do you have lyrics in mind, and then you pair it with what you've already been writing on
It
guitar?
it honestly just varies, like sometimes I'm just sitting there playing something on guitar, like I'll come up with a guitar piece and then I put lyrics to it. Sometimes I'm driving or doing something and a lyric comes to mind or an idea for a song comes to mind. I usually just make like a voice memo of that. And of course I have like thousands of voice memos of things that never became anything. Sometimes I'll go back and go, I'm like, I could write albums worth of songs with these as song prompts if I had like a little more, if I wasn't, if I was a little more disciplined. I would go
Yeah,
back and be like, this is going to be my goal. I'm going to go to each of these voice memos and write a song based on. Of course, that doesn't happen, but yeah.
I really like in your songs, in your lyrics, some of the social commentary. There's not really any places that you're afraid to go. You touch on some subjects that are maybe a little sensitive. In let me go back to it here. Glory Junkies. I really like this song.
I have an album called Glory Junkies, and then I have an album with my band, the Glory Junkies.
Yeah,
So I think you're talking about the 2015 one is the album called Glory Junkies. If people wanted to find the band Glory Junkies, it's Danielle M and the Glory Junkies. That's how you would look it up, and that's all
is it?
called All My
Oh, you
Heroes Are
know what?
Ghosts.
I'm way off. This is actually from Nothing Romantic that jumped out at me. It's You Don't Know Nothing. We're at the bar talking to
Oh,
the Vietnam vet, and then I
yes.
love the twist and turn of that story,
Thank you.
and then that songwriting continues on the other albums too. I guess.
Well, that one,
Yeah, I should
go
probably
ahead,
say,
sorry.
being at that age in your first album, did you have any? You probably weren't. Were you hesitant about releasing anything, or like, oh, I should probably rewrite this line?
No, I think I was more bold then than I am even now, to be honest. I kind of didn't care. I was like, I got like, I don't know. When you're younger, you're like, you think you're right about everything. So, but that song is really about, everybody thinking they're right, but not, it's that was inspired by a true thing that happened, or like, it wasn't, obviously you take liberties when writing the song so it crafts into like something that's coherent and sounds like a story. But I used to play back then, so that came out in 2005. That's almost 20 years old. That's insane. But
Can't believe it.
I can't believe it. So I was around that time when I was playing tons of bars. Like that was my main thing I was doing was, and I never did like top 40 covers in bars, but I did like some classic rock tunes and I'd throw originals in there. I'd play bars where like for the most part the owners or whoever's booking it would let you just kind of do what you want or whatever, so I could try out songs, and it kind of helped me cut my teeth and become a better player because I could try new stuff out when nobody was really listening. And that was I actually overheard a conversation with like a guy saying something about, he was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I was in Vietnam, like overheard a conversation about this. And so that stuck with me. And then at the time, you could have conversations with people you disagreed with
Yep. Right.
politically. And it was a heated time politically. It was like the Iraq
I
war and Bush and all that. There was a lot going on. And, I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a left, I lean left. That's what we do for the most part. But you could have a conversation with somebody who, it wasn't like, oh, I hate your guts now because you support Bush. I might be like, I think you're wrong, but whatever. Like
yeah.
it wasn't this like, didn't make or break you to the point where you were not going to be able to like, and there wasn't social media, so you'd actually be having these conversations face to face.
It wasn't
And
so ugly just yet. I remember that the Bush
it,
Kerry election. It was starting to get there, but like you said, if you're out at a bar, you could finish the
yeah,
conversation with the left wing guy or the right wing guy and get on with it. But a little different now.
yeah, it wasn't so cuckoo crazy like in both directions or whatever. It was like you could have a conversation. There's also something to, even now, if you're like actually looking somebody in the eyes and you're talking with them, you're not gonna start calling them horrible names like you would on when you're on
Yeah.
social media, when you're on Facebook. I went through a phase where I would argue with people on social media, and now I do not. I do not do it on like Facebook. I only use it to promote shows, and that's it pretty much, you know. And I probably don't come up in people's algorithms as much because I'm only saying, hey, I'm playing here, but I don't
Yeah.
care. It's like I can't take it mentally and in my soul. Like I can't, you know, I'm not going to post something and then have to sit here with a pit in my stomach going, oh, what are people saying? Or what are they commenting? You know, it's not worth it because you're not changing anybody's mind. So
Yeah,
anyway, that
everybody
song was written when you could talk. That was the point.
I was going to say, everybody listening here, if you're still jumping into the comment sections of hotbed topics on X, get out of there. You're
Oh
not going to
God.
convince anybody. Spend your energy trying to convince your sister, your brother, your best friend. Do
Yeah.
not waste.
Yeah. You're jumping into a dumpster, you know,
Yeah.
and you're going to come out feeling gross. It's just the way it is. It's unfortunate because you'd like for it to be a place to have actual good discourse, but it's like it's just gone off the deep end. It's really oof.
Another
Yeah.
Now the title track, I guess you call it on Glory Junkies. Glory Junkie. You had me rolling on this one. I'm like, and I'm a few years late hearing it because I know this was released 2015, but still relevant today. I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but and you must have been cracking up when the full chorus came to you of look at you, and then I know you do, or what? How does it go? Look at
Look at
you.
you, look at you.
Like when you finally
I
put
think
it together, you must have been chuckling a little bit.
yeah,
Um,
I think that one happened pretty quickly. You know, it was and that ended up being like obviously the title track, and then it became the name of the band because I was like, that's actually a good name for a band. But that was, you know, that album came out when social media was becoming when it was just starting to grow and people were starting to be on there all the time. And it's funny, it's like when you are a performer, you are a glory junkie, you know, that's why you
yeah.
if we didn't want people to watch and listen to us do this, we wouldn't, you know, we would just play at home and just write for ourselves. And we would, you know, but we do feel like we want that energy back and we want that feedback. Performing it's like its own thing, you know.
There's
But
the healthy ego. That's a real thing. It's good.
yeah,
It's okay to
I
have a
mean,
healthy ego.
you have to have some in order to even want to perform. And whether you know, you could argue whether that's a healthy thing or it's gross or whatever. I don't, you know, but
Right.
but with social media, it's become an epidemic where like it's pretty much how it's like everybody needs that attention because you got a little taste of it. Whether it's like it could just be that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a performer or not. You might just be like, I want attention for this funny thing I thought of, or I want this. So everybody does it now. It's not just like, oh, I want to do this because I want to be a performer. I want to do this or that. So it's really become just the way of the world from
Yeah.
that point. And since then, where we're just like, I need you to give me attention. It might just be like, I'm feeling sad today, you know. Please post pictures of your cat, you know, whatever it is, you know, cheer me up. And, you know, I mean, really, we're just trying to get by. We're just trying to figure out, everybody's just doing their best. So, you know, it's not a criticism of that. I think it's just, for some people, that is a way to feel better, is like, I'm just going to post this and hopefully get some affirmation. But it has become, so that song was like, in a way, I was thinking about all that, just the selfies and the look at you, or just the idea of being around somebody who sucks all the air out of the room, you know.
Yes, there's and again, I have some lyrics written down for other songs, but dancing in your rain, you're working up such a sweat, telling us
Oh,
the
you're
story.
working up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
becoming
you're working
smaller
up
and
a sweat.
smaller.
It's been a while since I played that one because I forgot how to play it. But it's yeah, it's something like you're working up a sweat, we're dancing in your rain, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just heard that, and everybody knows somebody in their life who's still there or used to be there who's that way. Where, hey, let's go out for drinks, let's go out for dinner. Great, I'll see you at 7, and you go and you sit and you just sit and say,
Yep.
yep, yep, and then, oh, it was so great to see you, and you give each other a hug, and you go on your way, and you think, well, I was,
Yeah.
but anyway, and there's another track on there I want to move along to, but Heat of the Wind, I just, well, I'm a huge baseball fan, but I like the concept in general of pointing out how so many times in life you can be so close to the end of the rainbow or to that promotion that you're looking for or whatever it is. You can almost touch it, and then it's
Yeah.
snatched away from you.
Yeah.
Was that a true
Yep.
story about your dad going through that experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was a waiter his whole life, and he just I mean, now he's retired, he's happy, but but he always like would just talk about how much he hated the job, and then he just never got a chance to really try something else. And I think it was just more like a fear or whatever it was. So yeah, I mean, I think that happens to a lot of people where they just end up stuck in a job they hate forever or whatever it is. So yeah, and then just the whole Bill Buckner thing, I always thought that was fascinating that someone could become sort of you know, a villain, like considered, a
Oh
villain
yeah,
of an area just because of one mistake that they made or whatever. And then that redemption of him throwing out the first pitch after the Sox had actually won. I mean,
yeah,
the sports, I'm not really into sports, but I think I hate when people tell me that a song was based off of a prompt, because it to me sometimes that takes the it makes it sound like it was mechanical, but it really wasn't. But the somebody said, write a song about your favorite sports hero, and I said, like, I'm not a sports fan, but I was like, Bill
hmm
Buckner. He was considered sort of the loser of the Boston area for many years,
yeah.
or like the one and I find that fascinating, and for that reason he's like kind of my favorite. And so because I do remember when that happened when I was a kid, and it was like, so I don't know how much you know about the just Boston sports in
Yeah.
general, but the fans here are rabid. They're just like, you could be at the theater and somebody's yelling Yankees suck here. It's just
Yeah.
they're
I
just
was
so
right there because I'm not do not like the Yankees. So when they were going head to head with the Red Sox in the early 2000s, I was always rooting for the Red Sox. And then they
yeah.
pulled it off in whatever 2004.
Yep.
That was really exciting. Um, there's a line I think this ties in a little bit, kind of like what you're describing with your dad or anybody that's in a situation that they're not really happy about and they're dreaming of a way out. You kind of have to get out of that idea phase or that daydream phase and write it down. But there was an old interview. I tried to do some research here, but you said if you're unhappy in a situation, change that situation, do something else if there's any way possible. Don't waste your life being miserable. It's
Yeah.
often easier said than done. Some people have some more resources at their disposal.
For sure.
They know how to use the internet versus there's a lot of people that are underserved and underprivileged or however you describe it that or they just got out of jail and they can't go quickly get on Indeed and fill out a resume and start doing stuff that a lot of us do. Um,
Yeah.
but I do believe in getting out a piece of paper or getting out your phone and taking notes and like put it in writing of things that you want to accomplish
Yeah, for
and
sure.
keep looking
And
at it.
and the truth is, like, whatever, I think I know the interview. It was probably I was probably 22 or something when I was saying, I
Yeah.
probably was coming from a privileged place thinking like, well, if you don't like it, just change it, man. I think I was
Yeah.
in that headspace at the time. Well, you don't know when you're young. You're just like, what do you mean, just do this, it's easy, like. So I like, I understand now that that's not the easiest thing for everybody, whether it's that you don't have the financial means, or it's just some people just simply don't have. It's just there's something in them that just is like a deep fear, and you just don't have that, whatever the tool is to do it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the tools to do everything that I want to do, the mental tools. you know
Yes.
so sometimes, I'm guilty of it, to just be like, well, let's just especially since the pandemic, I think
I
it really made everybody slow down by force, and a lot of people decided, oh, I don't need to be working as hard as I was before, for
Right.
better or for worse.
It got a lot of people out of that frenetic pace. Day to
Yeah.
day, it just kind of slowed all of your processes down. You don't have to rush to get out of the house anymore to catch the train or just get on the highway and
Yeah.
just hurry to get to the office or whatever you got to be. Just
Even
everything.
just how many people are working from home now, even that alone, it's like, oh, we don't have to, we could do this from home. We have the means to do this from home now, you know?
Right. Danielle, there was I want to touch every album, maybe I will, but Box of Troubles, a couple songs here, and then you continue to do this in some other songs as well, where I feel like you're trying to inspire whoever's listening. I mean, they kind of have to read into it a little bit, but the song Home on Box of
Hmm.
Troubles, I don't know if you perform this live as much,
I
but
actually just started playing that live again a lot recently, but I had put it down for a while.
there's a lyric here: some devils get their wings, some angels fall, the rest of us roam. I might be off. I read into that life is not always fair, and you can't look at everyone's
Hmm.
situation and say, "Oh, look at that guy. It looks like nothing ever happens to him. Look at her. She's um, got a new car, a nice purse. What's everything must be going great."
Yeah.
Is that and then also "Glimmer of Gold," which you kind of mentioned the title track there. You rise from the rubble in your box of troubles. There's always a glimmer of gold, and that's to me that says press on, just keep going.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
That one, that was like, that was inspired by a winter solstice card that a friend sent me. It sounds a little like foofy to say that, but she, a good friend of mine, Nancy Scott, who's incredibly thoughtful and just sends really sweet gifts on birthdays and is always thinking of everybody. And anyway, she sent a winter solstice card, and the winter solstice card explained what winter solstice was, which I didn't know up until that point, that it's actually the shortest day of the year, and then the days get longer after that.
oh yeah.
So you're in the dead of winter and it's the coldest it can be, usually, maybe not as much now, but
Not a lot of
uh
daylight.
yeah, it's just it's the darkest time. But now, the one thing you can keep in mind is that now the days are going to start getting longer. So it's like, it's that glimmer of gold, that little ray of hope when you're in your darkest time. So that's what inspired that.
And on the
And then
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, sorry. No, you go.
I was going ahead to Bright Shining Stars. I have a couple points in this one, but did you have something
Okay,
you want to
so
say on Home?
let me let me say about Bright Shining Stars. My husband wrote that song.
I knew there was a story here. Like you had
Yeah.
he he was going through something, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it was a difficult time period, and you were trying to hide the project from him and not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could talk about it. So, well, my husband had a stroke in 2019. Okay.
Mhm.
He's doing well now. He's knocking on the wood and all that right now. But he's doing well. But at the time it was a really grueling thing. He was in a coma for 9 days because he got pneumonia while, like, when they put him when they intubated him, they gave him staph infection, and he had pneumonia, and they had to keep him under for, while the lungs cleared up. It was the most terrible, you know
Wow.
time ever, and I feel really lucky, and that he's here, and but in the meantime, he was not far from his 50th birthday at that point. And so he the next year, we after that happened, that was like early 2019. He was in the healing process, and a fan of his band is the Baker Thomas Band. A friend and fan of his band decided to put together a surprise compilation for his birthday, for his 50th birthday, of a bunch of people in the music scene here covering his songs. And so my husband is a pillar of the scene here. We met because he was hosting an open mic back in late 90s, 98. And he's a great musician, great songwriter, great bass player, but also has always been somebody who facilitates the community and the scene around here. And for the last almost 10 years, he's been running a music series out of the Burren in Davis Square in Somerville, Mass. Anyway, so he's beloved in the scene here. So a bunch of musicians did covers of his songs, and we made a compilation. And obviously I was going to do one. So I had to tell him I had to tell him why I was going into the studio. It was a surprise. So so I said, "Oh, I'm going over to Dave Westner's, Dave who recorded it. And I'm thinking about maybe making like an acoustic album of just a bunch of mostly covers I've been doing over the years, which is something he had suggested to me a while before that. Like, you should do a covers album of all these." So I was like, I think I'm gonna go and do it. So I had to make it true because I'm a bad liar. So basically I went in and recorded a song, and then I recorded a bunch of other songs, and then I made it a project, and we made it an album. But and I didn't know I was going to put Bright Shining Stars on it at the time. But then when the album was starting to come together, I'm like, I'm going to put this on it, and it's going to be the title track. Because I also felt like I needed I know that, you've clearly done a lot of research, and I really appreciate it. So, but you might be able to see a pattern in like the albums that have mostly like a little bit of a negative twist to the title, Nothing Romantic. Glimmer of Gold that's not the name of that album, right? I think it's
Box of Troubles and
Box of Troubles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember. They
Glory
all have
Junkies.
like a little bit of they're all a little cynical. You know what I mean? Everything has a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a cynicism to them. And I'm like, this one's going to be called Bright Shining Stars. Freaking bright shining. This is going to be like, I'm going to call this something really positive, because I felt like I need this right now. I need positivity. I think the world needs positivity right now.
Yes.
And so it was just like, it clicked. It was like, this is what we're going to call it, Bright Shining Stars. But it's a beautiful song. And anyway, you had a question about the song itself, and I went off on another tangent. I hope I'm not over
Oh,
talking.
no, this is quite all right. I was going to mention first the track that you wrote, "You Can Love Yourself."
Oh, I didn't write that. That's the Kev Mo tune.
Oh man,
I wish I wrote that.
I'm sorry.
That's Kev Mo. I love that tune. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the theme there. I think it's important, again, me speaking to the listeners, that because Danielle, whoever you are, if you're someone's a fan of your music, if they're anybody out there, me included, you might feel like you just made your best friend mad about something and you wish you could take it back. You feel like you screwed up at work last week and you got to figure out a way out of it. Or you did something really bad and everyone's turned their back on you, whatever. But there's still a chance for it's hard to get there if you're feeling that low to love yourself. But folks, it does start, I think it does start with you. If you treat yourself well, try to dress yourself. That was one thing. About 10 or 12 or more years ago, I was going through a rough period of time. And the first thing that I thought to do was, all right, I'm going to overdress every day. I'm just going to do it because I want to look in the mirror and I'm shaving and I'm, buttoning the shirt. I'm like, I'm just going to dress dressier than I usually do so I can feel like I at least, what was it that Chris Cornell, I mean, it's one of his big songs with Soundgarden, feeling Minnesota or looking California, feeling Minnesota and outshined. That's kind of how it was.
Yeah.
But start with something small if you're going through a period like that where you're just beating yourself up and you feel like the bad guy.
That's great. I love that. Did it work? Did you feel like it helped?
Yeah, that helped me little by little. It kind of helped me get through the days. But yeah, if you start with something small, because you can just feel like nothing. You're just down on the ground, or like I think the lyric says, like dust on an empty shelf. You can get to some low places, but
yeah, I love that he made it like it has humor in it too, and it's sort of got a little bit of double entendre, and it's just and he's such a great performer too. Kev Mo is one of my favorites. He's such a great live performer, and it's just got this kind of good, it's just got a fun spirit to it. I love that tune.
Yeah, but the song "Bright Shining Stars," the title track, your husband wrote the lyrics. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing. But it's like the world needs goodness to be grown. How true is that today? Going back to the early part of our conversation here, the world needs goodness to be grown. Let's give a shining star a new home. I also like how he comes out at the start here. A lot of people can relate to this. Even though I never offered up much of a plan, you basically still took my hand and decided to do this with me. So,
It's a beautiful song. Yeah, he's a great writer. And he writes these like amazing arrangements, and I would cover more of his songs if I was better at memorizing chord progressions. He writes these epic tunes with like these amazing chord progressions. Even that one, I'm like, I still need a cheat sheet if I play that one live.
Now, on some of these songs, you've got other players in the mix. There's some harmonica. I don't know all the musicians on every track, but anybody you want to recognize on?
Yeah, it's essentially, I mean, it's mostly solo, and then I just got a little help from some friends, like I think my friend Lawrence Scudder and bandmate, he's my Glory Junkies bandmate and my friend, and I've collaborated for years. We've played together for many years. He played viola on a couple of tracks. Peter Parchek, who is another collaborator of mine who I was talking about earlier, who I do a project with, he's on a couple of tracks. And then Rosie Rosenblatt, who's he's Viztone is his label. So he's on the Meet Me in the Morning track. He's playing harmonica on that. And so I had like a little bit of help. I did a couple of I think I did one of the leads myself, which was on Turtle Blues. And it's funny because in the some of the reviews, people are like, we really enjoyed Peter Parchek's understated playing on Turtle Blues. And I'm like, that's not his understated playing. That's my simplified playing. But thank you. If you were able to mistake me even for a second for Peter Parchek, I am really, really happy. But yeah.
Now,
Just shows you perspective,
Danielle, I noticed watching some of the videos, you've got an old beat up Gibson. It looks like you have a few of them. Do you take one or more out on the road with you when you go to perform?
I always have two. I always have one that's tuned to standard and one that's tuned to open D. My LGO is the old, like the 67, and that's the one that's like, yeah, that's a magical guitar. I use that. I usually have it in open D, so I use that for any slide tunes. That guitar I have whether I'm playing an electric gig or an acoustic gig because it sounds beautiful just plugged in direct. It sounds really cool and badass through an amp, even with a band, So that's like my versatile, can do anything guitar. And then I have a newer, well, I had my J45 was my main Gibson guitar for years. And then it got to where it was hurting my back because it's such a big guitar. So I have this 00 that I use now for the standard tuning stuff, and I love it. And then I use mostly a Fender Telecaster for my electric gigs.
Well, and the Glory Junkies album that was released in 2017, All My Heroes Are Ghosts. We haven't quite touched on this. Probably won't go too deep here, but that second track, All on Fire, I love that. It kind of
thank you.
It's an up-tempo song. It's kind of like, oh, wow, when that one really kicks in. It's like, okay, here's some, it really shows your versatility. How much fun is it going out there and playing with the guys? Do you have to get into a different mindset? Do you keep the same routines before those performances?
It's different. It's like it's two very different things because when you're playing solo, it's always about connecting with the audience, but even more so solo because it's you and them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's I feel a little more of a connection with the audience when I'm playing solo because I have that, like I say, it's like you with them. But with the band, you've got that energy amongst each other. So you're rocking together. You're kind of and I love it. It's so much fun. To me, like I don't know. I love playing solo because I just love playing acoustic and I love stomping and I love getting in that zone. That's probably my biggest comfort zone is the solo thing because I did that for years before I had like a regular band. But there's nothing like just having that collaboration with other people and also just the hang. Like to me, it's just what I missed the most during the pandemic was hanging out in the green room. It wasn't even the actual playing part.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I missed my friends. I missed
Yes.
just getting to just goof off. You just have this like chemistry with your bandmates. They're like your siblings. You know what I mean? You're able to just kind of
All the banter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just there's something really cool about that I missed it a lot when I didn't have that. So yeah, I love it both, but I do really enjoy that connection.
Now you have some shows coming up. On the first one after this episode will be on the 16th with Jen
Yeah.
Kearney. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep, that's my monthly residency at the Porch, which actually this is the last one for a couple of months, but the Porch in Medford, Mass, which is that's like a brunch gig that I do there with different friends. I call it Lunch with Friends. So I have a different friend each month. The other one, the next one after that is with Peter Parchek. That's the project I do with him, and we'll be at the Fallout Shelter in Norwood, Mass.
And then I saw in January, after the first of the year, you're actually traveling to do a show in North Carolina and Maryland.
Yeah. So I'm doing the International Blues Challenge, which is in Memphis, and so it's happened every year for many years, and I've never gone down there. But this year I went and did the Boston Blues Challenge. I won the Boston Blues Challenge. First of all, I'll preface it by saying I always hated contests, and I kind of wrote off. I was like, I'm never doing any contests again. For like at some point I said, I'm not entering any contests. Stupid, I hate contests. But I was just, I don't know. I just on a whim said, I would love to just, I feel a little out of the loop. I'd love to just jump in and just go down there, even if it's just for the hang and for, seeing everybody. And it ended up being really fun. And even if I hadn't won, it would have been really fun. It was a good time. And so now I have to go down to Memphis and do the International Blues Challenge. So I decided to try to tour down. It's all last minute. So right now I have one gig on the way down and one gig on the way back up. So I'm at a house concert in Midland, North Carolina, and then 49 West in Annapolis, Maryland on the way back up. So hopefully a few more things will come together.
Well, I think I've got I definitely have some listeners in the mid-Atlantic states. So
awesome.
If you guys are listening to this episode, please go out and make plans. You've got some time. Hopefully got some money left after Christmas to go out and hear Danielle perform. Danielle, I usually wrap up with a few just random questions. Well, some of them are written down. Some of them just come to me as we're talking. You got about 5 minutes for a few more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, I know Prince is a huge influence of yours. When I was about, I'd say 6th grade, whatever that is, 11, 12 years old, I was buying cassettes. I wasn't quite to CDs yet. So the first Prince cassette I got was, it was Prince, The New Power Generation. What was the one he put out in 91?
Diamonds and Pearls?
Diamonds and Pearls, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you like that era of Prince, the early 90s?
I like it all. I have a preference to the Revolution, to like the to 1999, Purple Rain. Actually, my favorite of his is Sign of the Times, which was the last one he did with the Revolution. But I love New Power Generation too. I mean, that's a great album. That's got Cream. It's got Get Off. I love that album. And then he did the Symbol album after that, just before he changed his name.
I never listened to the Symbol period. Are there some good deep cuts there? I never heard a lot about that.
Well, I think that the Symbol album, the album that was just named The Symbol, that was like before he actually changed his name to that, is with New Power Generation, and I think it was the next one after Diamonds and Pearls, and that has the song 7 on it. It's got I don't know if that was like the #1 hit on there. I feel like there was one other one, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But that's a great album. And that's just before he changed his name to The Symbol. In fact, the first track on that is My Name is Prince. So, my name is Prince and I'm funky. That also has, I don't know if you could swear on this, so I'll just say it has Sexy MF.
Yeah, we can push the boundaries, go right up to the edge is what I say.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the saying, don't meet your heroes. I don't have a question about someone you met that you're like, oh, that was a letdown. Have you met someone that has inspired you and you thought, well, this would be cool, and then you meet him and you're like, okay, he was really awesome, or she was really just exceeded my expectations?
Well, so in general, every time I've met somebody I'm a fan of, I've walked away unsatisfied. but not because of any issue not because of anything that they've done. Mostly because of the way I acted in the situation. Like, I got to meet Bonnie Raitt, and she couldn't have been nice. She was very nice. But I was just like, oh, music is not so much. Like, I just like blabbed. I just like, a bunch of words just kind of fell out of my face, gushing. And I wasn't really satisfied with the encounter, but she was really nice. So it wasn't her fault. It was like me just feeling like, oh man, I'm an idiot, The best the best I ever experienced was meeting Joe Cocker.
Oh, cool.
And he was just so nice. And I only met him because my friend Kevin So had opened for him at the Beacon Theater in New York, and I went with him. And after the show, Joe came up to Kevin's dressing room. Like, there were a bunch of people hanging out there, and he came up, and he was just really nice. I mean, it was not like, oh, we bonded and we had this great, like, it was just, for some reason, I thought that he probably had, in my mind, I was like, he just seemed like he had this reputation. There's something about his vibe that I thought he would be a little like edgy or something. Like, I didn't think he would be so nice. He was so nice. He was so nice. And he was like just in passing talking about, well, we did Woodstock, da 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 da. And I'm sitting here in front of Joe Cocker, and he's talking about Woodstock. And then he was so nice, and he like gave me a kiss on the cheek goodbye, and it was just he was so sweet.
Never
so that
saw
was
it
like
coming.
a satisfying encounter, and I probably didn't say much at all, which was probably why it was more satisfying.
That's a cool story, though.
Yeah, so that was fun. But I haven't really met anybody that I was like, they were jerks or whatever. I haven't met that many people that are famous, but
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song from your first record, or even a track that you wrote around that time period, or even a couple years before, that you never released, never recorded, never played live? Do you have some songs that are kind of, in the vault, in the shadows, that you're very still pleased with all these years later?
Something you mean like something from the first album, or something in the?
I guess it might be two-part. I guess what would be your favorite song from the first album, and then is there an unreleased song that's very special to you that you're like, look, it's not coming out. I'm not going to play it live, but I love it. And
I can't think of an unreleased one, but the first album, like Nothing Romantic was the first full-length album. I just kind of ignore any kind of little EPs that came out before that, but so I think of that as my first album. It's weird, like when you get distance from something, sometimes you listen back and you go, ooh, I wish I didn't say that. That was cringy. And sometimes you listen back and you go, oh, okay. I had I had a period of time, like in the last year, where I was just not writing much at all. I just wasn't inspired to write. And I was like, maybe I don't know how to write anymore. And I was in the car with my husband, and he just put Nothing Romantic on, and I was like, oh, I do know how to write. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm all right. I know how to write. So, but yeah, anyway, from that, I mean, I still think Nothing, You Don't Know Nothing is probably the best song I've written, and it was written, at that time. So it's probably what's given me a hard time writing since, because I'm like, well, this isn't as good as that.
Oh, the chorus just grabs you, and
somehow that came out, and it was just like, oh, okay, this is like a cohesive, it's like a song that I wrote that was a cohesive story. It had like a good point. Like I've just not been able to do that since. Not in that way.
I think Snow Globe is really, aged well. It's the first track on your first album, but hopefully you still perform that one sometimes, moment by moment.
I do. So Snow Globe is like, it's probably gotten the best response from other people out of anything I've ever written. And it wasn't necessarily my favorite that I wrote. It's just people relate to it, I think, for some reason, but in different ways, But yeah.
Well, all right, couple silly questions here. Danielle, are you ever sitting on hold? And we all know the hold music. Sometimes it's better than others. Sometimes you really get treated to some, jazzy sounds. Do you ever hear hold music and you're waiting for 17 minutes and you just start tapping the foot and you start thinking, I could do something with this, and you start thinking of has that ever happened? The answer is probably no, but I had to ask.
I love that question. No, because I'm usually so angry that I'm on hold that I the last thing on my mind is being creative. And usually it's like, and they never pick good music. It's always the most annoying music that there is. I don't know if they're trying to slowly torture you. I'm not sure why they do that, but it's like I'd rather them just leave it quiet and every so often say, "Hey, you're still on hold."
Your call is very important to us. Now back to music.
Yeah.
I did hear some hold music the other day, and it was I was scratching my head. I was like, "What is happening here?" It was like Simple Man and Tuesday's Gone, and I'm thinking,
Oh,
has
wow.
Leonard Skinner, have they authorized this? Because this is, I mean, I'm not complaining. This is better than I usually hear, but what
Yeah, that's
is
not
the
bad.
world coming to? Danielle, are you an animal lover? Did you
Yes.
grow up with dogs and cats and
I grew up with cats. My mom was like a real cat. She's always been a real cat lady. You know, she's always been into cats. When I was little, she would take in strays. There's a couple times she'd taken a stray, and then she had one she took in that like had 8 babies, and then we had to find homes for the eight kittens.
Uh-huh.
And we kept one of them who was Mickey, and then he was like this real like he was just this rough and tumble, like just would go out and come back like after having fights. He was just like this little mean spirited sometimes. He was just so we always had cats when I was a kid. And then I kind of developed an allergy like when I didn't have one for when I moved out of my mom's house, and I realized I'm actually allergic to cats. So I didn't have cats for years. And then my husband and I just were both kind of allergic, but we were just like, all right, let's just do it. Let's get a cat. So we're not like so severely allergic that we can't handle it. We're getting used to it, but we got our cat Lucy like a little over a year ago, and I mean we're kind of ridiculous cat owners. We love her so much. She had a lot of like issues when we got her. Like we had to get all her teeth removed, and she had like so many health issues, and now she's
wow.
doing well. We're like we're kind of silly about how into her we are, but yeah, short answer is yes.
Yeah, we have 3 cats. There's my 10-year-old cat, and then we have 2 kittens that we adopted a few months ago. And
Aw.
the
How did she take to the kittens? Was she okay with that?
she's far from okay, and she's pretty brutal with them, I would say, in the opening weeks. But I think she's realizing, okay, they're not going anywhere. So maybe I think they've worn her out too. I mean, they're counterattacks. I mean, she used to go up and um, go after them when they were sleeping, and really stir them up, and then I'd hear all this commotion. But now I think they put a good licking on her once or twice. So she it's 2 sisters, the kittens that we got from the same litter. But
Yeah.
one thing I was going to say about cats, I'm guilty of this. This is with especially my older cat. She's been with me since before my wife, the kids, and so she looks at me every time I come home like, "Oh, you're back. Oh, I'm so happy. I could not be happier. Oh, pay attention to me. Why aren't you looking
Yeah.
at me? Why aren't you awake yet?
Yeah.
And let me lay on top of your head and let me climb down your throat." It's just, she
Aw.
still does all that stuff. And there's, you just get busy. You're occupied with a lot of stuff. And my question, this is so long-winded, but I was going to ask, do you ever look at your animal, your cat, and realize, oh, it's been a week since I've actually looked at you and not pet you, but just put my project, my email, my stuff aside and just spent some time?
No, I
Maybe you're better
probably
than
more
I
like
am.
no, I think more like, oh God, I have to get some stuff done. I'm just sitting here with the cat on. Probably the opposite. I'm like, all right, you've been laying on my chest for the last hour and a half. I think I need to get up and get some
Yeah.
stuff done. I mean, I prioritize her probably to a fault at this point. But yeah, I do feel bad like when if I go away, or we have really good neighbors downstairs who also have cats who know how to take care of cats. So, and they'll come up like 3 times a day if we go away and ask them to take care of her. So we're really lucky. We have like really good neighbors. But yeah, so then that's when I feel guilty, when we're somewhere else. I'm like, oh God, she's all alone right now, even though she's probably like, cool, I got the house to myself.
Oh yeah, cats are good if you got to go places. I think it's the 2 or 3 night rule. They're okay for a little stretch. Their dogs not so much, but
No, I would feel so bad leaving a dog. Oof, yeah.
um okay, I got other silly questions, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. um,
Well,
one
go
more,
ahead,
I
sorry.
guess.
Yeah.
Do you and Tom have a pop up toaster, or do you have the toaster oven? And you're gonna be thinking, what in the world is this?
We don't have a toaster oven. We have a regular toaster.
Oh, there
And
goes my question.
oh, what was
I
your
was
toaster
gonna
oven?
ask because we have a toaster oven, and there's different settings. There's of course toast, and then there's bake, and I think
Yeah.
broil maybe. Have you ever someone else has used it before you, and you put a piece of toast or bagel in there, and it comes out floppy, and you're like, "What is happening?" It's because you didn't change the setting.
Not
That
that I can remember. I did have a toaster oven at one point, but I don't remember if that happened. I know that one time we had this like combo regular toaster oven. It had like the top slots, but then it also could be a toaster oven. And when we were in an apartment in Somerville a few years back and we had a bad mouse problem, I remember taking that out and a mouse flew out of the slot. And it took me a
wow.
while to want to have a toaster after that.
I've spent all this time talking about these silly questions. Anything you want to say about the Boston area, the New England area, your favorite season, some things that you and Tom like to do together when you're not performing?
We are we have motorcycles. He rides his more than I ride mine. I have like a little Honda Rebel 250 that I just learned to ride like a year or two ago, and this was the first season that I actually started riding it very much. But mostly I hop on the back of his bike. He got a Harley Cruiser this year, like a road glide, and so we love just riding out to different parts of the state and sometimes up to New Hampshire and just finding little towns and just riding the roads around there and stopping in a little town and going into the shops and having some lunch. And it's like our favorite thing to do that's outside of playing music.
That's wonderful. I love the story. Going back to the record, and again, everybody, please make sure, and I'll plug this as well, Danielle. But Bright Shining Stars, you're paying homage to your heroes. But Danielle, anywhere else that you're going to be in the new year that's not listed so far, or that you want to promote?
Just the next Glory Junkies show it's March 7th in Maynard, Massachusetts. It's called The Sanctuary. So that's our next show as a band, the Glory Junkies. So that's the only thing on that list that was like it's like the other project that that I'm involved in so that's the other gig there. And there's a bunch of stuff, and there'll be more. If you DanielleM.com is the website, and that's kind of good catch-all for wherever you like to get your info. It's got all the different social media links and all that, and all the shows listed. So
Okay, Danielle M. Folks, if you can spell Danielle, you're almost all the way there. Just throw in the letter
yep.
M at the end.
That's it.
What a great name to
I got lucky.
snag.
I got it early on. Got it. My mom was hip with how to do that stuff back in the day, so I got my DanielleM.com real early on. Yep.
Download these albums. This is coming out a few weeks ahead of Christmas. Folks, if you're having people at your house around the holidays, play the new one, but jump around. Play the Glory Junkies, the solo album, or the full band, Nothing Romantic. Try out these tracks with your friends and family. You're going to love them. I've been driving around listening to these songs for the past couple weeks. Again, the influences, you'll hear some of them, but Danielle's got her own style. So if you already like Lucinda Williams, Janis Joplin, Bonnie Raitt, and Bob Dylan, we didn't get into much of that either, but you're going to love this stuff. I'm so happy to promote your music, Danielle, and thank you again for making a good chunk of time here with me today.
Well, it was a pleasure. It was fun. It was easy. It went by really fast. And Dan, thank you so much. First of all, thanks for having me, but also thanks for really listening to the stuff and doing the research and just knowing what you're talking about when you I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. It made it a pleasure and easy to talk about stuff because you're not just asking like, these like sort of vague questions. Like you're really getting into the details of things, and you're great at this. Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Danielle. Like we were saying, I think before we started the episode, people may think that I just have anybody on the show who says, "Oh, sure, I'll do it." But I really seek out folks, or performers, creatives that are doing stuff, and like you, Danielle, going on 20 years or over 20 years performing, and I do try to come in prepared, so that this will be entertaining for the Dan Time listeners. So it's Danielle time today. It's been a true pleasure. Maybe later in the new year, we can reconnect and talk about the new material.
Would love that.
Okay, well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dan Time. I hope you've enjoyed it. And remember, just like the title track on Bright Shining Stars, that's you. That could be you. You've got a chance, however small, to make a difference. The world needs more bright shining stars. And, superheroes, you can be a superhero in your own department. You're going to love the record. Have a great rest of the year, Danielle. Happy holidays to you, and be safe.
You too.
Can't wait.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks for being on the show. All right. If you love that episode, if you're enjoying the Dan Time podcast, be sure to download and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can reach me at dantimepod@gmail.com. If you've got a free finger tap and you can scroll down and pop in a 5-star review, I'd be thrilled if you do that. You don't even have to leave your name or email. You don't have to write anything. But, I'd appreciate a written review as well. If you really want to connect with Dan Time through the week, visit any of the social media pages. I'm on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can't miss me, I don't think. And if nothing else, as I've said before, just talk about the show. If you're having a good time with it, tell your friends about it, send a text about it. I appreciate you as a listener. Hope you have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday.